execute an about face. Take 2 steps forward with very.
What's up, my friends? Welcome to an all new video. Today we're here to talk about the Army Promotion Board. This is a board that you would go in front of if you are trying to make E5 or Sergeant or E6 Staff Sergeant. Either way, you still have a promotion board. You have to go in front of some members, and in this video it's geared towards kind of giving you a little bit of a heads up as to what it's like. Me, myself, I've been to about 3 or 4 boards. Now, 2 of them were promotion boards and 2 of them were Soldier of the Month boards. Actually, I think one of them was Soldier of the Month board and one's NCO of the Month board. But nonetheless, a lot of them go in a similar fashion. So this is geared towards helping you kind of have a general understanding as to what it's like when you go in front of the board. And then stick around, because later in the video, I'm gonna have a fun little clip. I actually have some footage from some soldiers of mine trying to do some practice boards when we were in Iraq. In this particular clip, the board didn't go very well for this individual, so it should be fun to kind of review this and look back and reminisce on the memories. But first, let's talk about the promotion board. All right, so you have a promotion board for E5s for sergeants and a promotion board for E6s staff sergeants. Anything past that, it works differently, and then there's no boards really for promotions before that. So these are usually the only 2 ranks that you have to do a promotion board for on the enlisted side. So when they would go to the promotion board, obviously, let's say the very first one, right, to make E5. Well, the person has to be an E4 to begin with and has to meet the requirements to be eligible to go to the board, and then their leadership has to recommend them to attend the board. Typically, they have one promotion board once a month. So there's usually just the one a month, and you're either gonna go to that one that month or maybe the one next month or whatever, but you only have one chance each month, typically, that they do these boards. It is done at the unit level, so it'll be done at your company, your troop, your battery level, whatever the kind of thing is, or your battalion level. It'll be done at your unit level. Soldier of the Month board is kind of similar to what I'm going to explain for the NCO kind of promotion board type of thing, where you're just going to be grilled on a bunch of questions, and then at the end they determine who the Soldier of the Month is for that unit, and maybe you get some little special rewards for that. Common rewards I usually see for that is maybe like a 4-day pass. So you get like a free 4-day weekend, or sometimes they'll have other little perks or whatever that kind of go along with it. 4-day pass is a pretty common one, but a lot of units will kind of squeeze in other things as well. Sometimes you don't get anything. It's just the honor if you get to be Soldier of the Month. So sometimes you don't get jack. You just, hey, congratulations, you're the Soldier of the Month. That's what I ended up doing. I ended up getting sent to the Soldier of the Month board before I went to the promotion board for E5, and then I'm pretty sure, I think I remember they also sent me to the NCO of the Month board the month prior to going to the E6 board for Staff Sergeant. The uniform for these promotion boards, and even like, I guess because we're mentioning it, the Soldier of the Month boards, typically is your dress uniform. So back in my day, it was the Class A uniform, now it's the blues, right? So your dress uniform is when you get dressed up for this board and present yourself. There are times when you'll do the camouflage ones. So an example, when I did my promotion board for E5, it was in my dress uniform, but then when I did the promotion board for Staff Sergeant for E6, we were in Iraq, and so they had us just do the promotion board in the camouflage uniform, because obviously we don't have our dress uniforms with us while we were deployed to a combat zone. So in those cases, we would do the promotion boards in your camouflage uniform. That also was the same for like the E5 promotion board or the E6 promotion board. So you will get like the topics ahead of time to kind of study for the board. You'll probably be told maybe the month prior. In some cases, maybe shorter notice, but that's kind of setting someone up for failure unless you just have a lot of confidence in that individual that they'll do great at the board. But most commonly, you want to give them a month or 2 months or whatever of heads up that, hey, we're going to send you the promotion board, start studying, start getting ready. Again, send them maybe to the Soldier of the Month board to kind of practice. And then the following month, maybe they're going to go to the promotion board, as long as they didn't bomb the Soldier of the Month boards too bad. They don't have to win the Soldier of the Month board, but it's just kind of some practice. So that way they can go into the NCO promotion board without, being like lost, and have at least a good general idea of how it's going to work. You will typically have a sponsor. That's usually maybe your first line supervisor. Maybe that's someone who's 1 rank above you, maybe 2 ranks above you. Just kind of depends sometimes. But you have some kind of a sponsor. That sponsor will usually go into the room first to kind of talk to the board members. So the day of the board, sometimes it's early in the morning, sometimes later in the afternoon, just kind of varies, but everybody waiting outside, you probably know the order that you're going in, your sponsor goes in there, before you're getting ready to go, and they go in there and they tell you why they are recommending you for promotion, why they feel like you would make a good NCO and all that kind of stuff. And the board members are asking that individual, a bunch of questions about, you as a leader and why you think that that person is ready to be a leader and all that kind of stuff. So that sponsor is in there to kind of hype you up and make it sound like that you're ready to be a non-commissioned officer. After they've talked to that individual for maybe like 5-10 minutes, something like that maybe, then they'll probably say, okay, go ahead and tell them to report or tell her to report. Usually then they either peek their head out the door or they come outside, maybe give you some little words of confidence or whatever the case is and tell you, hey, I'm gonna go back in there, give it about 5 seconds, 10 seconds or whatever, and then make sure you knock on the door. Now, when you knock on the door, it's usually 3 times, and you gotta knock fairly hard, right? You don't wanna knock too hard to where it sounds like you're trying to bust the door down usually, but you also gotta make sure it's nice and loud to where it's not some nice little light knock or something like that, but it's a good solid knock, but again, not crazy like the police are about to kick in the door and do a raid or something crazy. Someone from the board, usually the president of the board, the main individual that is on the board, will yell, enter. At that time, you open up the door, you come in, close the door behind you, and you'll usually, march towards the center of, usually they're at a table, there's usually multiple individuals there at the table, maybe 5, 6, whatever individuals, and you'll kind of usually center yourself because usually the person in the middle of the table is usually that president of the board that you have to report to. So you march in there, you stop, you come to a halt, you come to attention, you salute that individual, and you report. The ways of reporting kind of vary sometimes between unit to unit. Typically it's something like, you give your name, let's say my name's John Smith, just an example, or let's do ChristopherChaos, why not? So maybe like one common example might be something along these lines where I come to a halt, I come to a position of attention, I render salute, and I say something like, Sergeant Major, Sergeant ChristopherChaos reporting to the president of the board. Something like that, right? So it may vary a little bit here and there as far as the verbiage and the wordings. You usually find out ahead of time what the proper wording should be and all that kind of stuff, but that is typically how you kind of render it. You hold that salute until the president of the board, that individual that is in charge, usually a sergeant major, maybe sometimes it could be a first sergeant, it really just kind of varies, but they'll render their salute back and then you can drop your salute. A common thing at this point in time is they'll have you do some face-up maneuvers, right? They'll have you maybe do a left face, maybe take 3 steps forward. They'll have you do an about face, take 3 steps forward, whatever the case is, right? They'll have you do some different face-up maneuvers just to make sure that you know how to march, you know how to do these face-up movements, but at the same time, they're also kind of like inspecting your uniform too. So they're having you do these face-up maneuvers so they can get you from different angles and kind of see how your uniform looks, make sure that you took care of it properly, everything looks proper, it's in the right position, all that kind of fun stuff. After you maybe do a few face-up maneuvers, a few steps here and there, whatever, they may tell you to take a seat. I've seen sometimes where they'll really mess with you and they'll have the seat in a weird position and see if you're gonna move it into position to, be in front of the, the president of the board, or if you're just gonna leave it the way it is. A very common funny one I've seen is where they'll really screw with someone who will have the chair laying on its side, and I've seen soldiers just get on the ground and try to get into it sideways. The correct answer would be to pick the chair up, center it to make sure that it's in the center in front of the president of the board, and take a seat. At that time, you're sitting at the position of attention. That means you're sitting down, your hands are in your lap with your palms face down, arms to your side, looking straight forward, sitting up straight, head forward, head up, all that kind of fun stuff. So it's like sitting at the position of attention. Your feet are together as well, by the way, if I have to mention that, but you're basically just kind of like in a modified attention position in the sitting position or whatever. So they're probably gonna introduce all the different members of the board, usually have people from the different companies, the different troops or whatever, maybe have different platoon sergeants or whatever. It's kind of usually a variation of different individuals that probably introduce themselves, and then they probably want you to give some kind of bio about where you came from and your Army career and all that kind of stuff. Then usually the questioning starts. Now you start getting questioned about a lot of different things from the Army. Like I said, typically they'll give you the topics ahead of time as far as what to study, that you know what the topics are going to be for the board, so you know what to study, you're not completely blind. They may throw in a little kind of curveballs here and there, but you usually know ahead of time what to study, and then at this point the questioning starts, and you'll go from different board members. Usually each board member has a specific subject that they are the ones that are going to be asking that subject, and they'll start asking you questions from that subject, and then maybe switch to another board member, and then they'll ask you some. Maybe it might come back to that original person, or it may just go in order and they kind of go through it. Some of your common things are going to be probably like Army history. You're gonna have current events. They're gonna ask you about something kind of current that's happening. They're probably gonna ask you about basic soldiering tasks, right? They have a ton of different topics they might ask about. A definite one that you are definitely going to have to know when you are at the promotion board is the NCO Creed. They will 100% should be asking you to recite the NCO Creed. And if you can't recite it, that looks really bad on you. So that is probably one of the main key, there's a lot of key things, I guess, but that's definitely one of the many key things to make sure that you must know before you go into that promotion board, and then you can recite it in front of them. A lot of times they'll really screw with you. They'll be interrupting you in the middle of it, and you have to kind of, pick up where you left off at or start over, whatever the case is. But sometimes they'll kind of do some things maybe to distract you, or maybe, in the middle of the NCO creed, start asking you another question or whatever. It is definitely not at all like, oh, I'm great at, job interviews or whatever. It is not at all like a job interview. It's a lot more stressful than a job interview. And that's kind of the idea, right? They're trying to make it stressful to see, can you handle stress? You're supposed to be a leader, you're supposed to lead soldiers. Are you gonna buckle under this pressure? Are you gonna be able to handle this stress? Can you answer these questions? And even though you're feeling pressured, maybe someone's asking you one question, you're trying to answer that one, and somebody else starts asking you another question in the middle of it. Are you gonna freeze up, or are you gonna be able to kind of handle that? Definitely a key thing is if you do not know the answer to that question, you don't just simply say, I don't know the answer to that. You wanna hopefully go into it well prepared enough that even if you don't know the answer, you know where you can get the answer from. For an example of that is maybe, let's say one of the members of the board is asking me, what is the measurement that the ribbons are supposed to be above the left pocket on the Army service uniform? And I have no idea what that measurement is supposed to be, how far above that pocket is supposed to be, but I'm not gonna say, I don't know the answer to that. A good answer to still give, even if I don't know the answer, would be something like, let's say it was a first sergeant that was asking me this question. I would say something along the lines of, First Sergeant, I do not know the answer to that question at this time, but I know that I could reference it from AR 670-1. Knowing where I could find the answer is a good answer still, right? I may not know the exact answer, but sometimes they do like it if you at least know where you can get the answer from. Now, sure, that does sometimes depend on the person, but most commonly, a lot of the promotion boards that I've been to, that I've watched, that I've sat in on, that I've been a part of, that is usually a key thing is, maybe if you don't know the answer, then at least you know where you can find the answer to it. Now, you couldn't get through the whole entire board doing that, right? You're gonna need to know the answers to some of the stuff, right? You can get away with a few here and there of that kind of an answer where you give the answer of, I know I can get it from this reference manual or from this or from that or whatever, but at some point in time, you do need to still be able to answer those questions. Another key thing is making sure that you're confident. You are 100% sure that that is the answer. Even if there's a little bit of doubt in the back of your mind, don't show it. Make sure that you show the confidence. So this whole board thing can last anywhere from maybe 20 minutes to possibly even an hour. I don't know if I've heard a lot of cases that go past an hour, but it could be possible. There is no set time frame of this. I've seen some that are fairly short and some that are really long. I remember like when I did the promotion board for E5, the guy before me, it felt like he was in there forever. He was maybe in there for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that. I went in there, I did fairly decent, and I think I was in there for maybe 30 minutes probably as well. When I did the E6 one, it seemed a little bit shorter. It didn't seem quite as long. I was probably only in there for maybe like 20 minutes or something like that. But that's around the common one. It could be somewhere shorter, but it can be something really long as well. It just really depends on how you're doing. Sometimes if you're doing really well, then it might be short. But if you're really struggling or something like that, they may grill you for a while, or they may just want to kind of, test you for a little while and see that, okay, do we really want to deny this guy, or should we, maybe just grill him some more and kind of see if he builds some confidence and gets the nerves out, or whatever the case is. So it can definitely vary as far as the length of how long you are there answering these questions. But once you are finally done, they kind of go around the room and make sure that everybody's done answering the questions. They maybe say something like, I have no further questions at this time, or maybe something or whatever. And then at that time, once they feel they have no more questions for you, then the president of the board will dismiss you. You then stand up, you render salute. You don't necessarily have any kind of little thing you'll say here, except for maybe like your unit motto. Like one of my last units was, the 3rd ACR. So, maybe it might be a thing where I say brave rifles, and then they'll respond with whatever theirs comes back is, which is AIA. Yeah, everybody has like their own different little unit mottos. So that one's a pretty common one, or you just might render salute. And then, after the other person, the president of the board renders their salute back, then you drop your salute and then march out of the room. So once you leave the room, the sponsor stays in the room and they will usually find out, how it went, right? They're gonna be talking amongst each other, talking about how the person did, maybe kind of adding up the scores, because you also have some promotion points to go along with this to make a score, to make you eligible for promotion, and then they'll give the recommendation as far as if they're going to recommend you for promotion, which means you can move on to the next steps, or no, and you maybe need to come back the next month or a couple months down the road. Either way, you'll find all those results through the sponsor. Sponsor gets those results as far as how you did and if you got recommended or not, comes out of the room, lets you know usually right then. Occasionally you might not get the results until later the day or next day or whatever, but it's pretty common that usually you get the results that same time right from the sponsor shortly after you've left the room. So now I want to get into the video. I have this video from when I was in Iraq during my second tour to Iraq. We were in the Baghdad area, and what we were doing is we had our own like mock boards, practice boards for promotions, right? We had a lot of specialists and E4s and everything in our, troop that, maybe wanted to prepare to make it to a sergeant. So we usually had pretty much all of the specialists go through this little mock board with other NCOs plus our first sergeant, and we would grill them and kind of try to give them some practice so that way hopefully eventually they could go to the real promotion board and do great. So this is a little bit of footage that we'll kind of check out of that promotion board or that mock promotion board. And this particular soldier, he was pretty nervous. He was, it didn't go very well. You're gonna see here in a second. All right, so we're gonna check this out. It's broken up into two clips. We were inside of this little wooden building that we had while we were in Baghdad, Iraq on BIOP, which is the Baghdad International Airport. So this was like a little conference room, and it was at the back of our little CP area, our little troop area, and this was like used for conferences. Sometimes it was used for just hanging out before mission, for doing mission briefs and all sorts of things. So we had this room used and kind of set up temporarily, like once a month or twice a month, I forget when it was, we would do it to be able to use it for these little mock boards. And the guy sitting in the chair is one of the other soldiers that is kind of sitting in as like the sponsor here for all these other soldiers, and they kind of does a little mock thing of trying to hype the soldier up and all that kind of stuff. So let's kind of check this out. Kind of messing with him, trying to like adjust the chair, put it in an off spot.
Fairy dust, there's a little fairy dust sprinkle on the door.
He knocked, but he didn't knock very hard.
There's some fairy dust sprinkle on the door. God damn, shut in here nothing.
He tells him to knock harder.
Enter. Abandon all hope, ye who enters. What? Tarker?
Specialist reporting to the board tonight.
Reporting to the board. Oh well. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Report to that board then, there at high speed.
It's pointing to the wall.
Get
I
out.
don't think you're ready to salute back. Kicks him out.
There, Specialist Garrison. I'm not telling you. Get out.
Kicks him out. Wants him to try again. So that's the first clip. We're intentionally being harder on them because we wanted to make them more nervous than they will actually be in the actual board, to make it hopefully this one being easier than the real board. So we intentionally made it a lot more stressful, ragged on them a lot more, and all that kind of stuff. But this particular individual that we had, he was struggling a little bit. So this is the other part of that clip now. It was broken up into set clips, but this is basically his second attempt.
Anytime.
Waiting for him to knock. There we go.
Enter.
Special Spark reporting to the board, Sergeant.
Reporting to the president of the board. Someone corrects him. One of the other NCOs corrects him.
All right, Special.
I'm the one recording, by the way.
Fix your left face. Take 2 steps forward.
Didn't swing his arms. He's so nervous.
About face.
He's doing a robot voice now.
Take 2 steps forward. Very.
We all start buzzing all that because it's not hitting March.
Robot, so thank you. Execute left face. All right, Special Barbie. When you're marching, you march.
Nine to the front and 6 to the rear.
That's the way we do it here. Everybody knows that.
All right, execute left face. Take 2 steps forward.
he still ends up messing it up.
Demonstrator, coach. Execute about face. Take 2 steps forward.
This time he doesn't even want to swing his arms. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Execute left face. All right. At ease.
That hua that I just heard go off, and you guys might have heard it too. It's because I'm using my streaming capture device. So while I'm recording this, somebody subscribed to the channel. Anyways, let's continue on.
Professor Barker. All right, Professor Barker, you know how to march, right? So make sure when I tell you take.
All right, so that clip ends right there, and that was basically it. But yeah, that was not how to do it, right? So that's a good example of how not to do it. Oh man, that was rough. Like I said, we intentionally tried to make it harder for these individuals, but this guy, he was definitely really nervous, and so it was definitely a struggle for the individual. He didn't ever become a NCO when I was at the unit. I don't know if later in his Army career he did, but not while I was in the unit. He didn't end up going to the promotion board and becoming an NCO or anything like that. But yeah, there you go. So there's some tips for the promotion board. A little fun thing at the end here. Probably a fairly lengthy little video, but hopefully you enjoyed it and stuck around for the whole entire thing. If you want to see some more stuff like things like how to be successful in the Army, let's say, for example, well, check out this video right here. If you haven't seen my latest upload, it's right there, readily available for you. Links in the description for my social media, for Discord channel, all that fun stuff. Thank you so much for sticking around for such a long time. You're awesome. I'm ThatChrisChaos, and I'll see you next time. See ya.